Good evening, everyone. Tonight we'll be joined by Leon Joudrey. Very fortunate to be joined by him. He wanted to share his own story in his own words. I had started to put together something else and decided now the best way to leave it is just with the way he said it. I do hope everybody has a fantastic long weekend and gives thanks. And many of us do have things to be thankful for. But do not forget those who are missing people in their lives. God bless everybody.
We have a glimpse tonight into the irrational mind of a Nova Scotia mass killer. Court documents paint a portrait of a man paranoid of COVID and deadly calculating. Now a new witness has come forward. Atlantic Bureau Chief Todd Battis has the story.
I'm the lucky one. I survived.
Leon Joudrey has left his Portapique neighborhood. Still, he can't escape the horror of what happened there last month.
No, I can't go back to the house now. Scared.
The night of April 18, he heard gunshots but didn't think anything of it until he saw fire and police the next morning.
Seen a little bit of flame in the SWAT vehicle and knew it was Gabriel's house, and I figured they were there looking for him because I knew what he was like.
Joudrey didn't like Gabriel Wortman, so he was surprised when Wortman's longtime girlfriend was pounding at his door for help. Police have said she escaped after being tied up and beaten by her partner.
She came in, told me stuff went on, just that he went crazy is basically all she said. She couldn't dial 911, I called 911.
He said officers took her away, and that was it. Hours later, he found out friends, Jamie and Greg Blair among them, were murdered. Joudrey isn't alone in his opinion of the gunman. Witnesses told police he was paranoid, a psychopath who was abusive and was himself abused as a child. In 40 heavily redacted pages of an unsealed search warrant, his unnamed partner also said she watched Wortman pour accelerants in the cottage and warehouse, and that she saw several firearms on the front seat of the out-of-commission police car. Another witness said that night a police car pulled up alongside his vehicle in Portapique. The driver of the police car had a firearm and shot at him, and the witness was not certain but thought the shooter was Gabriel Wortman. The document goes on to reveal that Wortman had dressed up as an officer before. His girlfriend said he didn't like police. He thought he was better than them. Todd Battis, CTV News, Halifax.
So we're joined tonight by Leon Joudrey, who was in Portapique that night. Thanks very much for joining us, Leon.
Welcome, thank you.
So if you want to go through, start us off and tell us what happened.
Well, I moved to Portapique 2.5 years ago and didn't really meet anybody for the first 4 months, and then I met Greg and Jamie, and really the first people I met there, and it was just a normal, quiet community and a good place to live. But you want to start with that evening?
Sure, that would be great.
Yep. Well, on Friday afternoon, I was talking to Greg, and he had some trees he wanted to cut down. So on Saturday, I didn't have nothing to do anyway because spring of the year and nice days. So I had a pulp tractor and trailer there, so I was cleaning some brush, and I cut the trees for Greg. And on Saturday, I came back. He was working around the yards. I came back, and just a normal day. Hauled a couple loads of brush for myself and Greg. They had me over for lunch, had me over for supper. I left their place about 10 to 9. There's only 4 of us at their place that night, and we're all tired and left. And I went home and called a friend and shut the phone off about 10 to 10 and went to bed. And when I was falling asleep, I heard what sounded like 2 gunshots, and that's the last thing I heard till I woke up at around 3:30 in the morning.
So when you woke up, Leon, at 3:30 in the morning, and I understand, it's not unusual for people to hear gunshots out there, in the night, rural Nova Scotia. Can you jump ahead to, when you first woke up?
Well, I woke up. I usually get up at 4 anyway, and I woke up a little bit early, turned the phone on. I had 2 text messages from friends. Is that you lighting the fires? Is that you doing the shooting? That's all the text said. So I didn't think much about it, and opened the door and could smell smoke. It didn't smell like wood smoke, so I was going to make a coffee, didn't left the lights on, jumped in the half ton, and left around 3:45, 3:50, I can't remember exact time, and drove out Orchard Beach and drove right past Frank and Don's house. Didn't see it on the way out that it was burned. It was dark. Wasn't looking either. Made a left-hand turn onto the Portapique Beach Road. And just as I was approaching where Gabriel lives, I seen a flicker of flame, and I seen the SWAT vehicle. I said, there. And we all thought he was an idiot. Nobody really cared for the guy anyway that I knew of. So I seen the flicker of flame. First thing I thought, idiot burned his own house. What did he do now? And I wasn't thinking murder. I was thinking anything but that. So I drove up beside the SWAT vehicle, and there's a guy in the passenger side, and he was looking down at me. So I put my window down, and I was trying to talk to him. He wouldn't put his window down. So I kept saying, I can't hear you. And he kept talking through the window. So I drove straight ahead, and then to put the headlights and loudspeaker to turn around and proceed to the entrance point. So I turned around and left, not thinking anything. That I knew they were looking for Gabriel, or assumed they were looking for Gabriel. The SWAT vehicle sitting in front of his house, but I didn't know what he did. Wasn't thinking he killed anybody. So I'm heading back to my house, and I said, well, I'll go back to my place, left the lights on. I'm not, he burned his house. So I'm driving in Orchard Beach, and I seen a flicker of flame of Frank's and Don's house. And then I knew something wasn't right, and I didn't know what. So I went as fast as I could past Portapique Crescent, where I live, past the Blairs, looked in at Lisa McCulley's, looked in at the other residents around the loop, and came back to my house. Didn't see any more fires. Didn't look at Gabriel's garage because I didn't care for his place anyway yet. And to look in, and I got back to the house, got my shotgun and rifle, and went in the bedroom.
And then, I think we know, you were there for a bit, and what happened next. But in your own words, why don't you tell us how that situation unfolded?
Well, I typed in on Google Portapique because I'm not the best with technology, and nothing came up at directions. So I figured it was nothing on the news, and SWAT had it under control. So, but then I was nervous because I didn't know why nobody was around. Where was everybody? So at around 5 a.m, I did try to call Greg's number, and no answer. And then it was daylight, so around 6, I'm not sure the exact time. Bang came to the door, and I looked out around the door, and it was Gabriel Wortman's girlfriend, Lisa Banfield. So I went and made sure she was by herself, looked out the door, opened the door. She comes in wearing black spandex and shivering, not shivering cold, just shaking and, in a panic, and said that Gabriel lost his mind. And I said, no shit, Lisa, he burned his own house down. And I said, what are you doing here? He doesn't like me. And she went to leave, and I wouldn't let her leave. And did she have a cell phone? I don't know. We used mine. I put her in the bathroom because she was just panicking. I didn't want her to leave, and I was on the phone, and I called 911.
Right.
And what condition was she in when she came to your residence?
Well, she was worked up, like hysterical a bit, panicking, but she, I can picture her as I'm talking to you right clear in my head. She had black spandex clothing on and no shoes. But, I hear so many stories about in the woods, and she didn't look like she's in the woods to me all night. She looked pretty clean to me. So I don't know where she was, but from what I seen, she didn't spend all night in the woods, and she looked okay. She looked like, I only met her twice in my life, and she looked like she normally did. I didn't see anything visible to say she was assaulted. Not saying that she wasn't, but nothing crossed my mind.
In any, I guess we can circle back to, there was, was there dirt on her feet? Was there anything on her clothes or anything that, might have pointed that she was in the woods for 8 hours that night? Nothing
Nothing pointed to that she spent 8 hours. No, she was clean. She didn't have any. I know the woods down there, a rabbit can't crawl through it. You'd be covered in fir needles, moss, dirt, but she might have been somewheres, but she wasn't in the woods all night. But that's my opinion, and from what I saw. So as she's in the bathroom, I called 911, and just it wasn't very long. SWAT showed up.
How long do you think it? How long do you think it was, if you could recall? Maybe minutes.
I tried to get my I can get my phone records, but it's just minutes. Yeah, it wasn't very long. You're talking minutes.
Right. And I mean, we might as well lead into, give us in full what transpired once they showed up at your place.
Well, I seen approximately 3 vehicles. They were out at the main road, and 6 SWAT guys. They're all dressed in camouflage coming towards the house. So I opened the door, and Lisa didn't have any shoes or coats. So I give her my my government coat, and I give her my sneakers, and she went out the door, and they took her away to the van or the truck, the SWAT truck. And one guy's over by my tractor, and they're kind of scattering around my yard coming towards the house, and my black lab runs up to him and sniffing at his ankle, barking, and all I focused on was him, and the barrel, the assault rifle was right against the back of his neck. The one officer was standing there with his gun by his side, and I walked right by all the other officers and went up to him and grabbed the barrel of the gun and tossed it backwards, told him, get the gun away from my dog's neck. And he said, we're not concerned about dogs. So then I go back towards the guy at the house. And so, what do you want? And he goes, is there anybody else in your house? I said, no. And I don't know if it was him. It's just, they were everywhere. And is what's in your garage? Or my garage door it's a 12 by 24 with a roll up door, and it was up about a foot. I said, garage stuff. And he said, oh, okay. And they got in their vehicles and left. I went back in the house, called a friend of mine, told him about how they acted coming across the yard. We were kind of making fun of them because we still didn't think he killed anybody, because this guy didn't know either at the time. So then I seen another truck coming. So I get off the phone, went out and flagged them down. They pull partway in my driveway. They loudspeaker me to the front of the truck. Then they loudspeaker to the side of the truck, and they loudspeaker me to the back of the truck. And when I get to the back of the truck, they open the door and stick another gun out at me. I told them, you were just here and got the girl, told them the whole story. They said, if you got somewhere to go, I said, yeah, well, you better get out of here, shut the door, and they drove away. And that's when it first hit me. They haven't got a clue where this guy is. I'm marked for death. So I run to the house, threw my dogs in the truck, and then left the rifle in the bed, covered up with the blanket. And I started going out of Portapic, out of Orchard Beach. And when I got to the stop sign to make a right-hand turn, it's about half a kilometer to the pavement, and I got a call from a resident saying I'm still alive. I said, what are you talking about? He said, he killed everybody. I said, who? And that's the first I knew anybody was dead. And the rest of the story is not story, but my memory is real sketchy from then out, because I think the shock set in, or started to.
Now, what did you do from there, Leon? I mean, obviously you're extremely worked up.
Well, I didn't know what to
you know.
Right at that moment, because I said, I got to get off phone. There's a cop here. Like, I was that close to the pavement. And I told him who I was, and he said, go to the Great Village Fire Hall. And I seen my coat laying by the pole, so I don't know what. I just focused on that and asked if it was okay, pick it up. He said, yes, it was. So I went and got the coat. And I drove to the Great Village Fire Hall, and I don't remember how many people were there. I just remember somebody by pulling in. They put me into a command center they had set up, and I talked to 2 officers there, Terry Brown, and I don't know who the other guy was.
Okay.
So you drove yourself to?
Yeah, I drove
to
the Great Village Fire Hall. After I met with them, I left there, and I was heading to Truro, and a friend of mine called, so I went to his place. And the next thing I know, a lot of other, just all hell broke loose. And then we got word Gabriel was past Brookfield, and I went to the woods till somebody called me roughly 10 to 11. I didn't know where to go, so I just went to the woods. Where was I going to go? I didn't know where to go, so I was confused.
And they didn't keep you in the evacuation center?
No. And looking back on it, that's really surprising, because I shouldn't have been on the road. I didn't know where I was going, and like it was
it's a very traumatic event.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I shouldn't have been on the road. I mean, they talk public safety, but my God, I could have. No, I shouldn't have been driving, and thank God I didn't go to the Onselbad Mount Fire Hall.
right.
So they
So
actually,
they go
sorry.
ahead, James. Sorry.
So you actually drove into an area that technically he was supposedly still in?
I drove through DeBert before he killed the two women in DeBert.
Oh my.
So not through, but past DeBert. Like, yeah, it's just I got that in my head, and so he wasn't even back from Wentworth when I was leaving, so he was behind me. So that's a different feeling.
Yeah.
Knowing I was on the road, and they assumed he was dead in there and committed suicide, and that's the worst thing you can ever do is assume. And look what happened: more people get killed.
Yes, there was reports that they sent people home because they thought that he had committed suicide or he was dead.
I never heard any reports about that, but I do know that they assumed he committed suicide, and boy, that's a cardinal sin. You never assume, and they assumed, and it cost 10 people their lives, including one of their own, Heidi Stevenson.
Absolutely.
Shocking.
So maybe we can, maybe from there, Seamus, if you want, we can roll back to Gabriel, and you know how Leon came to know him and their interactions.
Sure. So when did you first meet Gabriel?
It was probably close to a year there. I never even seen the guy much because I was busy too, and I met him on the road one day, and he was in a half ton. Couldn't even tell you what kind it was because I wasn't paying attention. And we got talking, and then yeah, that's how we first met.
And you had, how long did you live down there?
2.5 years as of now. So it was 25 months pretty much since I lived there. Yeah.
Did you see him often?
Not a lot. It was sporadic. You might see him 3 times one weekend and not see him for 2 weeks. It was just, and he wasn't around much in the winter. It was hit or miss when he was around. Because down our road is where the warehouse or garage or whatever you want to call it. His main residence was on Portapic Road.
Mm-hmm.
So his garage was down on our road.
So I understand you did some, you know, you had an encounter with him where he hired you to do some tree work. Do you mind going through that for a minute and what that day was like and what went down?
Well, that was back in Remembrance Day, and I remember it because he showed up my yard, and he seemed off that day anyway. I had a few encounters with him, and they were never great ones. But yeah, I said, I'll be right over. So I went over, and he was walking down to woods already. I said, we need a map. He wanted me to put a boundary line in. I said, Gabriel, I said, we can't do this. And he's hanging ribbons. He didn't even go in a straight line. He's way ahead of me. So I told him to stick to the dentist work, and I'll stick to the surveying. And I started walking in the woods, and he was following me out, just not saying a lot, just smiling and saying that's one of the things you got to do on your list. And I said, I was just trying to do it right. I'm not putting a line where I shouldn't. I got in the truck and I left. And that's the last time I actually spoke to the man.
And when was that?
Remembrance Day.
Remembrance Day.
Last year, yeah. And the only other encounter we had was when I was walking down about 2 to 3 weeks before the murders. I seen him shutting his gate, and he waited by his car till I was almost to it, then sat in at one of the old police cruisers, the one he always drove around without the decals on it, just the one everybody saw. And I went on the passenger side because I didn't want to talk to him anyway, and he put his window down and just smiled at me. And I walked past his car and I said, you know what? I got to live here too. So I turned around, went to take a few steps back, and he let off the brake and drove ahead. So I stopped. When I turned to walk back the other way, he hit the brakes again. So the second time I wasn't stopping, and he flattened it. He went out to the Portapic Beach Road, and he roasted the car up and down the dirt road for 15 minutes. And I just thought he was an idiot. So that's the last interaction we ever had.
So there's been reports that he didn't pay his bills to people who did work for him. Was that your experience also?
I only actually was there for, well, one time before. I just stopped by the power line, cut a tree down, so I actually never did any work for him to get paid.
Okay.
So speaking of, people he was paid by, do you know of any of these quote unquote two convicts described in the statements that Gabriel allowed to live on his property? And do you know of them and their relationship with Gabe?
Do you got the names?
I believe one is Peter Allen Griffin, but
He's the
I'm
only
not
guy.
sure who the.
He's the only guy I ever encountered. I met him once when Gabriel was talking about doing this boundary line, and I said, we just introduced ourselves, and he said that he did time in the federal penitentiary. So I said, oh yeah. So that's the only conversation I had with that guy. Not the first thing I bring up usually, that he did time in the federal penitentiary.
That was the way he introduced himself.
Yeah.
Interesting. So were you aware of any actual illegal activities that Wortman participated in?
No, like I said, when we talked, he was drinking, and he drank a lot, and he said he can get me a flat of rum anytime I want because he's got a place in the States in Maine, and he goes there a couple times a month. So that's the only thing I can say as far as the illegal activity, because it involved me, and that's not legal to bring back a flat of rum. So, and that's when I first met him. So yeah, that's all I can tell you on the illegal activity part.
So he had a residence in Maine?
That's what he told me. Whether he didn't, I don't know. That was in conversation, and I never confirmed it because why would I? How would I? But that's what he told me. He went there a couple times a month.
Right. So getting back to the quote unquote warehouse itself, have you ever been there? And if so, what was the occasion?
The first time I stopped in was just stopped in, showed me his motorcycles. He had a lot of Honda motorcycles, street and trail bikes. Like he had I don't know what, little Z50s, 80s, 250s, 500s. They were all street and trails or dirt bikes. And the only other bike I remember was some kind of a street bike. I call it a chopper with great big silver handlebars. They had orange flames going down the side of the gas tank. Those are the only bikes I saw. He had a real nice bar. That thing was huge. And he had a one-bedroom apartment upstairs in it, and a real nice big fireplace in the main place. It was like one big open room.
So it looked like he spent a lot of money and had quite a bit of money. Was that your impression also?
Oh, yeah, he made that's what he rubbed me wrong. He just talked about his money the whole time out. He told me he made $465 an hour, so he was full of shit, I thought, but who knows?
465. Wow.
He's a denturist. That's what he told me he charged.
Right.
Well, that's a pretty good wage for a denturist.
Oh, I don't know what they get paid, so I didn't.
Not that.
Well, no kidding. I didn't want to even carry that conversation further, so I just left it alone at that.
So, Leon, do you ever see him drive any of these motorcycles?
The only one I ever seen him drive was the one that I call a chopper, like the weird looking big handle street bike affair. That's the only thing I ever seen him drive. Couldn't even tell you the make of it. Not my type of bike, but that's the only bike I ever seen him drive.
Okay. And did you ever see any deckled RCMP cruisers in the warehouse?
No, if I did, it wouldn't have went this far. The only cars that were ever seen was the ones that I assumed everybody else saw, just the ones he bought at the police auction, decommissioned police cars. And he drove one around quite a bit, so it's common knowledge.
Right. Oh, yeah.
But it was unmarked.
The one I always saw, and everybody, not every, well, for me anyway, the one I always saw was unmarked. You could tell it was an old police car, but decommissioned, decals off it, and that kind of thing.
And you never heard rumors of the fact that he had a deckled up car?
No, I did not.
So if we, circling back to Gabriel, there's been a lot of talk around, his paranoia in COVID and, abnormal purchases, things like that. Did he come off ever paranoid to you? And, have you ever really seen any of his security cameras that he allegedly had up around his property where you did the tree work?
I never seen any cameras, but I just assumed he had them, and I told the RCMP in my interview the same thing. Nobody with that much stuff and that much money doesn't have a camera. So, but I never did see one. No.
Was he stockpiling items?
Not that I ever saw. No, lots of people were, but I wasn't one of them. And if he was, I didn't know he was. So I don't know, because I never seen anything stockpiled that I would take notice of.
Right.
Now, on the discussions, obviously, he had a police uniform that day. He was wearing a police uniform. Were you aware of police uniforms that he had, or had seen any?
No, I never saw. He never talked about it, actually.
Nothing about a police badge or anything?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing about the RCMP ever talked about with me.
Right.
Interesting. Were you aware of any firearms that Mr. Wortman had, or had heard of him shooting off firearms?
Never. I never seen a gun in his shop, and he never talked about it ever with me.
Nova Scotia guy, maybe you want to ask about the blueberry field?
Yeah. So, it's been part of the RCMP's narrative or evidence that he, allegedly escaped through a blueberry field around 10:35. I know that blueberry field is close to your place. And there's been a lot of speculation about the condition and whether he was able to get through there. Can you tell us about the trail and if it would be possible to get out there in a car?
Well, I probably know more about that road than anybody, because I walked it every day. Last year, not this summer, the summer before, they went in with an excavator and they fixed it up. And the road runs right tight against the tree line that runs parallel to Portapic Crescent once you make the turn by my place. And I cut right to the road. My line borders on the road. So when you go to my house, you turn left, you're only walking 100 meters to Brown Loop. And it's a little bit limmy there, but it's not that bad, because I drove down that road in a little two-wheel Hyundai Accent different times to drive down there. It's and the road's fixed up. So last week we were interviewed I was by the 5th Estate. I took them down and showed them, and they got it right on camera. Like, you could drive a 5-speed Honda Civic out this road, and you might hit a little bit of a push on the mirror, but yeah, it's easily passable, because I drove in it numerous times.
Right. Okay. So let's move on to your whole experience with the RCMP since these events. Do you want to give us a little background on what your experience with them has been like since?
Well, it's been limited, I can tell you that. Monday afternoon, it was around lunch or 12:30. Fraser Firth from Bible Hill RCMP called me. They were looking for me down Portapic way. Well, I wasn't in Portapic, so I ended up meeting them at the RCMP station in Bible Hill. And I met with Fraser Firth. Of course, they got somebody listening on the other side for probably 2.5 hours, and I was pretty much a wreck when I got there, and I was more of a wreck when I left because I still didn't sleep, and same clothes and the bright lights and just the questions were relentless. But I told them what happened to me, and I was getting frustrated at the end of it because I was just frustrated with the whole thing I couldn't believe it happened to begin with. So it was, I don't know, it was more like an interview or more like an interrogation. It was 2.5 hours, and I got water, so that was nice, but I was still stressed out of my mind.
Nothing other than that, though. A cup of water.
yeah, I got some water. But it was.
What were those questions like, Leon?
Pretty much just, well, I can't say everything because it is an investigation, but it was just the basic run-of-the-mill stuff about Gabriel and just what happened, like trying to piece together what happened more than anything. I think they were. And I just pretty much told them the same story I told you, except in a much elucidated voice. I was upset. I was stressed. I was in trauma. I didn't know what I was, but it's pretty much the same story I'm telling you, except really, really stressed.
I heard you mention that this is an investigation. Is that the line that they're taking with you? That this is an ongoing...
No. It is an investigation. I'm putting out everything that happened to me, but I don't want to get into what they might have found in people's houses, this and that and the other thing. I don't want to discuss everything we do because it's not fair, and it's
absolutely.
Nothing to do with trying to hide anything. It's just there's a lot of personal. I mean, we were a small community, right? So what I told them, other than what I'm pretty much telling you, is just kind of personal stuff, and it may have helped a little bit, but probably not looking back. So yeah, I don't know. So I just rather leave it at that when it comes.
Absolutely.
If it was something that was going to point the finger in one right direction, I'd be telling you right now. I would have told you long before this.
Right.
But
no, and we can appreciate that for sure.
Yeah.
Right. Nothing we're, any part of our dealings with this is to, traumatize any of the victims or.
No, and that's why I leave that part.
Right.
That's all. If it was anything directly involved with the case, we'd be talking about it.
Right.
So Monday I left, and I don't remember. I can't tell you. I went to a friend's house that night, but I really don't know who I talked to or what I did. But then I remember getting a call Tuesday that they wanted about who lived at what address. And so I ended up meeting them back at the RCMP station. And, well, they didn't have property online, or they wouldn't have called me, apparently. But I didn't ask that question. But I asked for Google Earth, and they couldn't even call up Google Earth. So before I left, I drew them a map on a pen and a paper where the houses were.
Wow.
Good thing I got good memory.
National Police Force.
Yeah. That's you know what? That's to me, that's an embarrassment. Being a forest technician, that just blew me away. Couldn't believe it. And then I got a call from them. Oh, it was from the woman from the attachment. It was just a question. I can't remember what it was about. It was a nothing question, and then I didn't really hear from anybody. Yeah, until I did call CERT. That went nowhere because I wasn't hurt. So I sent a registered letter to Ottawa, and in August, before I took a trip to Newfoundland to get away from just my brain was, so I just had to get away, right? So before I went, I met with a Don Moser, and he identified my complaints in my letter, and to identify the people because they were all dressed the same. I don't know who they were. So I met with him, and he was going to be my guy, call him anytime. And there's one thing, so one thing in there he didn't have was careless and dangerous use of a firearm. So I had him write it in pen. I said, "You held a gun to my dog's head, or your force did." I said, so he did write it in. And when I came back from Newfoundland, I talked to Fraser when I was over there once or twice. And I tried to get a hold of Don Moser, couldn't get a hold of him. So I sent him a text one night. I said, "Your wife got you busy?" He texted back operational stuff about a day later. Well, if that's my guy, then I need a new guy because I haven't heard from him again. So I met with Fraser when I came back from Newfoundland, went in and talked to him, and he wasn't, yeah, it went nowhere. So I eventually did. Skipper Dent did call me. I talked to him. He did get my sneakers back finally. That took forever because they lost them. They're in the police lockup room. And worse than that, Don Mosier left his card in my door and called my real estate agent looking for my number. They lost my number 3 times. They kept losing my phone number. This is the RCMP. It's
Wow.
not that hard to find.
Oh my! So you got the sneakers back eventually?
I did, and yeah, just I went to put them on. It hit me so hard that she had them on. I threw them out back of the garage, and that's where they are right now. So I did get them back eventually, but
you mentioned your jacket. Did they give you that back?
I picked that up on the way out for some reason. When I found out, as soon as I found out people were murdered, there was an officer there, and out of the corner of my eye, I see my brown coat folded up underneath the telephone pole, so I went out and picked it up.
Wow. So you have specific complaints outstanding about the officer pointing his gun at your dog, and they haven't addressed it.
Too, like how they handled themselves, me driving around. I had a lot of complaints in that letter, and I don't have it in front of me tonight. But I did give it to the Fifth Estate for their interview.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on what your complaints are?
Well, you got to think about what I went through. I drove around. I know, it's like I drove around a graveyard middle of the night. The officer I don't know, the driver that turned me around middle of the night told me to proceed to the entrance point. Didn't they wonder who I was? They didn't identify me. Didn't they wonder where I went to? They didn't clear my house. They didn't clear my garage. They held a gun at me, and my dog was a big thing too, but they just didn't do anything right. They didn't evacuate any houses. They didn't evacuate me. I could have told them there's a way out of here. Did you check that? I mean, it was just a total. I can't even get over it happened as I talk to you about it right now, because it just doesn't even, just hard to believe that I slept through that whole thing. And what were they doing all night? How did I drive around all these murder victims? A good thing I didn't pull into a yard in the middle of the night, and there's not an officer or a SWAT person in sight. How did that happen, and where in the hell was everybody? Right. So it's a big complaint. Like, you guys think you did right? They didn't do nothing right that night. I texted it to Fraser. They couldn't have shut down a housefly convention on that night. It was an embarrassment.
And this isn't a specific like attacking the RCMP general officers. It's just,
well, it's attacking the organization a bit, the way things are handled. But somebody's got to answer the responsibilities here. They shot the fire hall up. They didn't shut down any roads. No, right. The frontline responders. There's officers. I know it. There's good officers out there. Mm-hmm. It's like blaming here in Nova Scotia. We got a forest crisis. It's like blaming me for the forest crisis. There are forest technicians that know what they're doing. They should listen to us in the first place. So fire the ones that are responsible. And the poor frontline guys, they probably saw stuff that they can't get out of their heads either. But there are good officers out there. But unfortunately, there's a lot of bad ones that we pointed out in this event.
Right. I mean, there's a ton of great officers out there, and in no way are we, pointing the finger towards them. Those great cops that serve and protect our communities every day. We're extremely grateful. It's, I think collectively our issue is with the organization as a whole and how things were handled.
Yeah, and you got to know your audience too. We got guys out there. I mean, they got these guys, the SWAT guys. Well, who trained them it's not their fault. They're all in great shape apparently, but they might want to know what they're doing. You can't have a bunch of guys like, who's training these guys? And if you're an officer in 6 months, you're put in the car with a handgun. Come on, it's not enough time. It's not their fault either. And the laws that are opposed to them, they can't do a lot of things they can't take control situations, and then they got to answer for all their actions. So a whole lot of things got to be fixed.
Well, and the former head of Depot the training facility is the commissioner now, Brenda Lucky.
Oh, Lord God.
I mean,
Just
Get
shows
who's
you.
somebody,
what
get
we're
somebody,
operating with here.
get somebody to train these guys that know what they're doing. And it's obviously that's not working right now.
Wow.
So, I wonder if we can maybe jump. Maybe we can talk about some of the victims you knew there, and maybe just talk about them. I know you and I have talked about how some of them and most of them, if not all, were just wonderful people. Um, what can you tell us about some of those victims, Leon?
Well, out of the 12 in Portapic, I knew 8. Don and Frank next door, they were good neighbors. Rarely saw them. Great, quiet people, just good neighbors. Greg and Jamie, I knew Greg from 20 some years ago playing in the same ball team. We lived in the same row, but we lost touch over the years. Great people. Lisa, single mother, great mother to her kids. Aaron and Jolene, I got to know them the last 4 months, and their daughter Emily was just a sweetheart of a child. And yeah, they were good people, good neighbors. So yeah, tough when you wake up and 8 people out of your life plus 4 other people that lived in your community.
That's got
Well,
to
and
be.
not to mention, being thrown by the wayside by the people that are supposed to help us, right?
Well, that part, but the part eats at me is there's very little chance I could have stopped it. I know that now after thinking about it because I just would have drove down, but that I could have helped if they would have evacuated me and helped them out a whole lot with this road, or there's other ways out of here, or how did they ever assume somebody would do that, kill themselves? Like, my God, it just sickens me every time that I think that he was behind me after I drove already through the divert area. Just one of those things you'll never get out of your head.
And you never encountered any roadblocks.
No, I never encountered anybody. No.
When you saw them that night, how many cars were on scene?
That night or that morning?
Well, how about we do both?
Well, that night I was asleep. I woke up. I didn't see any car off RCMP cars. All I seen was a SWAT vehicle. That's the
Is
first
that
vehicle I saw.
when you say the SWAT vehicle? Are you referring to the armored vehicle?
The bigger truck. Yeah, like I never did see an RCMP car that night. The first RCMP car I saw was at the stop sign at the Portapic Road in the paved highway. It was almost 3 hours before I ever seen a cop car.
Were there a lot of them in Great Village?
By that time I got to Great Village, I was so rattled in my head. I couldn't tell you if there's how many there was, but all I can just think about is where was everybody at? It was just hard to believe that all these people are dead and there was nobody around. It's just unimaginable.
Wow.
So, and then for me personally, dear God, if it wasn't for a few good friends, where would I be? I should never have been left drive out of those buildings.
No,
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 not at
no,
all.
they should
and
have kept you there. They should have evacuated you,
well,
number
yeah,
one.
we all know that, but and then even to have somebody give you their word, they never call you back. It's a pretty lonely feeling sometimes. So, but good thing you got good friends and good animals, and good family. So, or we'd be in
Great,
trouble.
great four legged friends, eh?
Great 4-leg friends, yeah, they're my buddies.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Have they provided you any kind of supportive services since all
No,
this? Somebody to talk to, or
it's, victim services called because they couldn't find my number either. About a month later, so yeah,
Wow.
nothing.
they couldn't find your number either?
A month
No,
later.
it's becoming quite a joke, really, because I don't know what to tell you other than that. No, I never had a call from anybody.
So I know your kids and your ex-wife and the rest of your family have been extremely supportive of you. Um,
Kids and
you
Mac's
know,
wife has been during this too. Everybody says divorces are hard. This one is. She made this easy. She's been great during this.
That's good. That's good. And you know, the two pups, they've certainly been helping you a great deal. What can you tell us about them guys?
Well, I got Basil for a company for my other dog and me 8 years ago, and I named him after my great uncle. He was a great hunterman, great fisherman, and always liked the guy. And after my other dog passed away, I ended up getting a new one, and I named him Iserman after Steve Iserman off the Detroit Red Wings. So I become a fan of him watching Don Cherry one night, and I liked Iserman as much as he did on the ice as off the ice for people like Bob Probert. Bob Probert was a good hockey player in some off ice troubles, and Iserman always stood behind him and never threw him under the bus once. So that's why I named him Iserman.
Bobby's awesome. I love Bobby.
Yeah, who doesn't love Bobby Probert?
10 years ago this summer. Yeah, he passed away.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's the story in that. Yeah, my few good friends. So yeah, if it wasn't for that, as far as the RCMP goes, nothing.
Right, right. No, it's a sad story all around. You know, it seems like they haven't pulled their socks up on anything yet. So.
Well, when I first started this, and my first interview with CTV I was still a little bit in shock, and I wanted to see change happen now. I didn't want this to become a bunch of protocol, and what it seems they're doing is just trying to mitigate the damage. They know there's damage, either that or they're stupid, but just admit the problems, try to fix the problem so it doesn't happen again. And we can't bring anybody back, but we can't have this keep going on. How are families supposed to heal if nothing's ever dealt with?
Yeah.
It's
absolutely.
terrible. You and I can't do this and have this going for 6 months. And when it comes to the fact of the inquiry, it never should have been in question. If this doesn't deserve one, what does? And our own prime minister, our own premier were arguing over it. It's a no-brainer. They should have been. Oh, it just sickens you when they were arguing over that. It was like hot potato. I don't want it. You want it. I don't want it. Like, somebody take it. Like,
That stinks of just cover up and go away.
Yeah.
It's just terrible. It's just terrible for the families that have to go through this.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Traumatic over and over, and traumatic for you, right? Because you're not getting any answers or support or anything. They just want you to disappear.
Go yeah, go. Yeah. That's how I feel
Horrendous.
about it. But it does, because it happened, and I'm not being vindictive about it. Just fix the problems, and all you hear is the excuses. I'm tired of it. Just deal with, you made a mistake, made lots of them, start fixing the problem. And when the RCMP stand up there and say they did their best, oh my God. It just, I can't listen to that stuff. There's right and there's wrong, and that's totally wrong when you think you did your best on this.
I can't disagree.
Can we circle back to a little bit about Mr. Wortman a little bit more? Were you familiar with any of his family at all?
None. He never talked about it. Since then, I heard he had a father in New Brunswick, but that's just through the papers. But he never mentioned anything other than his girlfriend, Lisa. That's the only, he never mentioned anything. Does he have a brother, sister? I don't know.
How often?
I never followed the news either, guys. I didn't even watch my own. I just stayed strictly away from it till all this stuff is done, because I didn't want to hear any of these rumors unless somebody talked about it. So I didn't read news articles. So if he had kids and it was printed, I didn't know about it.
And how many times did you see Lisa?
I seen her probably 4 or 5 times, but twice was just walking down the road probably. But I only encountered her twice. Once there on their side by side at the beach, I stopped, and Gabriel was drunk or whatever he was on. I don't know. And he was verbally abusive to her, just telling her to shut up and that kind of thing. And I'm thinking, well, at that age, you know why she's there. It must be for the money. So I went over to get a map one day before, this was long before we did the survey, and he didn't have it. He's just drinking, and she apologized for his behavior, and I just walked by and said, to each their own, and just left it at that. And it's the only 2 conversations I ever had with her. So why she come to my house, I don't know. I don't know where she came from. So But that's the only two conversations I ever had with the girl. And I seen her drive a car, but I didn't even know what kind of car it was because I didn't pay attention. So.
Right. So you didn't see her a lot. I mean,
No,
at all.
no. Our conversations lasted 10 seconds total, like, not at all.
Right.
No.
So he would be up there a lot of the time by himself?
Or she was in there and I didn't know it, but I never seen her. I seen him come and go quite a bit without her. But I'm not saying she wasn't in the garage. I just assumed she wasn't because he locked the gate behind him and left. So, but I didn't talk to him every time either. But
Did she have her own vehicle?
She did have a car, and I couldn't even tell you make, color, model. But she never ever came down to the shop in it because she always came in the side by side. I never seen her down there in her car that I can think of. But she's, like I said, their main residence was in Portapic Beach Road, and that was his warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
So he was there more than she was, for sure.
So had you ever heard of Brenda Forbes or John and Alice Hudson prior to all this?
I heard no, not prior to this. No, I didn't. I just heard the names, that they lived down there, and that's all I ever heard. I didn't know them beforehand.
So you pretty much, basically knew of them through the articles and things that have come out since.
Just heard. I didn't even read the article, but I heard her name different times, but I didn't even read all the articles. So, yeah, it'd be unfair to even comment on it because I didn't read it all. Just didn't want to stay away from it.
Yeah, because she has a quite the story to tell about a lot of things that she didn't apparently witness. And, like I very much appreciate somebody who is like you, who will just say, I don't know that. But she seems to be quite speculative on what she actually saw. She heard rumors and then is coming out in the press. It seems interesting.
Well, that's why I stay away from rumors, because a rumor's a rumor, and some easy to start a rumor. And that's what I said. If anything comes out with my name attached to it, it better be what I said, because what I saw is what I saw. And yeah, there's lots of rumors, and I don't play into rumors. So yeah, if somebody knows something, then they shouldn't speculate it. Did you see it or didn't you see it? It's not wishy. It's black or white. So.
Absolutely. Did you ever hear anybody in the community speak of any kind of abuse that they had seen firsthand?
No, not a bit. Just this thing I saw on the beach that night, and that's the only thing I saw. But yeah, not a word. Like he wasn't talked about a lot because I was around at Greg and Jamie's place down the road and stuff. And I talked to Aaron the last bit I knew him, and Aaron and him, I guess, had words from Aaron, had some same thought I did about him, that he's an idiot. And now that's all I know about Aaron too, about his involvement with Gabriel. But whether they hung out or not, I don't know. But I know the last going off, they weren't friends because I hung around Aaron enough in the last 4 months to know that. It is pathetic, boy. Like I'm off work right now because of working, and I called out my managers. I said, if I can do this, I can do that. And I called them all out. Now Halifax HR don't know what to do about it. So it's every organization got its problems. I tell you, don't matter what corporation you're in, it's all top heavy, and the RCMP is no different. They need changes. Holy fuck.
Oh, fuck, tell me.
But no, we talk about the forest issue, and Seamus, you probably don't know much about it back here, but for 8 years now, I've been jumping up and screaming, telling them what's going to happen, and then didn't it happen? We're going to have an election here probably. Well, we got to get a new Liberal leader, but I'm not even political, but I got the next Premier of Nova Scotia. He's on board with. We talk quite a bit on this forestry stuff, so that might be a story someday. I told Russ there I got to retire first, though. So I hear you might come to Nova Scotia sometime.
Oh, I'll be there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I told you he's coming.
Somebody's going to give me a beating or something,
You never been here before, have you?
No, I haven't. Which is terribly unfortunate, but I've met a ton of good people online since all this started.
Do you like seafood?
I do. I'll have to bring some girl with me then to shell it for me because I don't like touching my food. They do that for me.
Well, no, you got to bring girl for me too then.
Okay. Well, I can see what we have. I don't know. Alberta. Do you like Alberta girls?
I spent 5 weeks in northern Newfoundland, only seen 5 pretty women, and they ain't there.
I'm leaving that in, by the way.
I think they know that.
Alberta is a great place.
Oh,
It's
I've
not
been there
bad.
before. I've been there. I was out there different times, went for job interviews and stuff. The only thing it doesn't have is the ocean. We need the ocean closer.
That's true. That's true. We got mountains.
I'd like to live up there in the wintertime, up northern Alberta somewhere. I could do that, but it's hard to beat Nova Scotia in the summertime. But yeah.
Yeah, I love the water. I'm fucking married to the sea, man.
I'm a scuba diver, so I get my
Oh,
own
wow.
stuff.
Wow. Oh, yes. Actually, I did want to ask that. I wanted to get your impression on how you feel the media has treated your story.
Oh, the media has been overall really good to deal with, except for a couple. They were awful pushy, and I shut them down in about 2 minutes. But yeah, as far as dealing with the Fifth Estate, I dealt with Elizabeth McMillan, and she has been fantastic to talk to. And I know through Maclean's, even after the article came out, Steve Maher has stayed in touch. And yeah, overall, the media has been good. There's been a few people that I shut down pretty quick because of their approach, but overall, yeah, once you build up a reputation with them, they seem to stay in touch. And I'd say, yeah, the media's been good to me.
Do you think, though, that they accurately represented, say, the Lisa component?
No, I see. I didn't even watch the interviews. I'm just going by what they treated me, and I know what I know. I did read Steven's article, and he pretty much covered it in depth so much so far. But now I know on the news they didn't cover it. But as far as the deal with, they're good. But no, they didn't. I didn't see it all. But as far as all those details, then probably not. No. But
Yeah, because they seem to leave those components, those key components out. Like
okay.
you didn't see that she was assaulted or
Look,
that she.
She
Sorry?
walked in my door. When she walked on my door, she looked the same as she always did. Now, she's hurt under her clothes. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but if she was physically assaulted, I wasn't in shock at that point. She just looked like she normally did to me. So, yeah, I don't know. There's probably X-ray reports or doctor's reports or some type of report somewhere, but I don't know what it says.
Unfortunately, not for our prying eyes.
Has her story stayed consistent? Because I just heard she spent all night in the woods, and then I started hearing she's in a shed in a truck and this and that. I don't know where she was, but is she making it up? Is it true? I don't know.
Well, it seems to have changed a little bit. We had the.
No, she wasn't in the woods all night, and that's the only story I'm sticking to because that's what I was told first. And no way that happened because I spend a lot of time in the woods. So other than that, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, because even the latest warrant indicates that she's crawling around in the dirt.
No. There's no.
No evidence of that when she showed up, right?
Oh, no.
And
No,
that she'd escaped handcuffs. I mean, that was what we started out with. I think she was restrained or something like that and escaped the back of the police car. And
yeah, well, I don't know. Houdini, I don't know. How'd she get out of handcuffs? Like, I don't, like, it sounds like a story to me, but getting
that's
out of handcuffs.
disappeared. That
Getting
part's
out of
disappeared now.
Getting out of handcuffs, crawling out of cars, crawling through woods, baying all night, and showing up like that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know where she was, but yeah, just she didn't look like she spent all night in the woods. That's for sure.
And you told the RCMP that from the beginning, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, right from the start. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I wonder why they would represent it another way.
I don't know.
It might be helpful to them.
Why do they do anything the way they do it? I don't know.
Oh, I think they're protecting themselves a lot, but yeah, that's speculation.
Yeah, it is. It's speculation. I don't know, but she looked like the normal Lisa to me when she showed up at the door.
Leon, anything you think you might have missed that you wanted to add?
No, it's just getting to the frustration level for me. Like, how many months is this going to take? There's not. Jesus, I look back at like look at Don Cherry got fired for saying new people. I want to see the unemployment list after this one. Why aren't people fired yet? What about the guy shot at the fire hall? What about who organized this? Who gave the orders? Why didn't they call people in? Who made that decision? It's not right. So, and it's not acceptable, and somebody's got to pay the price.
What,
Everybody's got to pay the price for something. So, who it is, I don't know. Wait, maybe it's just get wholesale changes and start changing the way they do business. I don't know, but it's not working the
absolutely.
way.
What was
So,
your feelings on the use of Twitter?
Twitter, I don't have Twitter. I just got Facebook. I don't have anything like no. If that, yeah, I don't. Unacceptable.
A public
They should.
alert system likely would have worked a lot better.
Oh yeah, they
Is
should have
is that what you think?
they shouldn't have used the public. They should have used every system. They used if they want to use Twitter, fine, but use the public system too. Use every system. Call everybody in till you know what you got. You don't assume.
Well, their
And
claim is that they didn't know how to use it or some nonsense, that this is sophisticated, but yet they used it, twice, 3 times on Easter weekend
think about this,
before.
guys. Think about
Sorry.
this. They couldn't use Google Earth at the RCMP station, so come on. Don't expect too much here.
Well, they did, though. They did. And then they used it afterwards for
Well,
again,
they
that
didn't.
scared
They
the
didn't.
tar out of everybody.
They didn't use it. Yeah, they didn't use it. Yeah, well, maybe they use Google Earth now too. They didn't use it that night, and it was important that night. So
Perhaps,
I don't know what
perhaps
to tell.
there's a new job for you, Leon.
Well, I think every depot should have a forest technician because they don't know how to get around the roads or the woods. That's for sure, and they can't shoot a gun. I seen them dispatch wildlife. They don't know where to kill anything, so they need to be retrained. It's not even. It's yeah. You can't make this stuff up.
So I really appreciate you joining us, Leon. I appreciate the interaction that we've had and getting to know you. And I do hope that we can keep the lines of communication open. This has just been a horrible situation for you, and my thoughts and prayers are with you and everybody down there.
Okay. Well, thank you.
And the same with me, Leon. You know, I can't stop thinking about you guys enough. So
Well,
take care, and thank you very much for joining us and making yourself available.
all right. Well, you guys have a good evening, and talk to you later.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Bye.